Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're going to be reviewing Wonder Park. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Wonder Park tells the story of an amusement park where the imaginations of a wildly creative girl named June come alive. So let's start off by naming some of the cast members in this movie. We have Jennifer Garner playing the mom, Matthew Broderick playing the dad, Bianca Densky playing June. We have Ken Hudson Campbell playing Boomer the bear, Kenneth Thompson playing Gus the beaver, and Ken Jeong playing Cooper the twin beaver. We also have Mila Kunis playing Greta the boar. We have John Oliver playing Steve the porcupine. And we have Norden Leo Butts playing Peanut the chimpanzee. Let's start off by going down the list, pros and cons. My pros is going to be a little short this time around. So, I like the animation of this movie, especially the way they try to make us look into the eyes of the characters. I don't know, I fell in love with the design of the characters' eyes. It's something that I've never seen before in other movies, because in this one, the eyes are a little bit bigger. When other movies, their eyes are really small. We take Pixar movies, Disney movies, and stuff like that. This one was more of an anime, if I can say anime style eyes, not the sense that the eyes are overwhelming big and stuff like that. I'm just saying the design of the inside, the color of the eyes kind of basically made me fall in love with some of the characters' eyes and not the characters themselves. So that's a little con and pro at the same time. For example, we had the character June sharing the same color as Peanut, which to me, Peanut was her alter ego in a sense because of the eye color. They both shared the imagination power, if you can say that. They had this power inside of them to create magical things or new ideas, which is, to me, is being a child. You always have your creativity, your imagination to be your friend when you don't have anybody around. Next, the plot line seemed really good to me, but at the same time, this is a con. It was not executed well, in my opinion. Next thing, I enjoyed the catchy pie song, and the reason is because I went to see it on a Thursday night, which was March 14th, which is National Pie Day. And when I was hearing the song, I was like, hey, it fits well with today. So I was like, oh, that kind of made me chuckle. The song is really catchy if people haven't heard it. It's really short, but it's like a camp song, so that really caught my attention. I really enjoyed the idea of the imagination with kids and how it relates to, in a good message, saying that you should never let your imagination die out, as a kid, even as adults. Imagination, basically, it's the reason why we create things and people come up with new ideas. It's a concept that just sparks out of nowhere, and the idea of never losing your spark is kind of a good message in my opinion. And then I really also liked the idea that they try to relate how June was dealing with the fear of losing her mother or a loved one to an illness. And this brings up other movies that I believe, in my personal opinion, did it better than this movie. There's the movie I Kill Giants, which is based off a graphic novel. And that, in a sense, I think it was a better way of showing the character losing a parent and at the same time living in a fantasy world. So this is basically like a mirror image of Wonderland. This version, June tries to get rid of your imagination and live secluded in the real world, versus the movie I Kill Giants, which came out in 2017. The girl actually has her mother falling ill to cancer and she's losing her, but instead of facing reality, she lives in a fantasy world where she believes that she's killing giants, which is a metaphor for cancer or the disease that's having her mother be ill. Now, for the cons, like I said before, the story was not executed well. In my sense, it was a little too fast and we did not really get to see what the mascots had to offer. I really wanted the mascots to give us more of their personality or how they are part of June, because June created them with her mother. So when you create something, you put a little bit of yourself into them. So I thought that was the way they were going, but they never did that. Like I said, it had really good potential, but it never got developed well. I'm going to talk about what they could have done better, in my personal opinion, or what I would have changed. But later on in the podcast. And the other thing that I'm going to complain about is that I didn't really enjoy that they made it seem like the actual park was magic. To me, that seems like a little cop out. So I think I would have liked it if they had went the route like the Polar Express or the idea of the movie that I just mentioned, I Kill Giants, where the person doesn't really know if it's real or it's just their imagination playing with them. Like the Polar Express, the kid either believes it was a dream, but he basically still believes that it happened. And sometimes he's questioning himself throughout the movie if it's a dream or not. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw the movie.
So the film, for me, I feel just like you, Sal, where for the most part it felt flat. But let me start by talking about the few positives that I had about this film. One, you already touched upon as well, the cast. That was pretty much the thing that jumped out at me when I heard about this film. I mean, you already mentioned some of the actors and actresses in the film, the likes of, Mila Kunis, Ken Hudson Campbell, even John Oliver was in this film, which to me he's a talk show host as well. So, I mean, he has that comedic feel to him. But yeah, I mean, I found that a nice little touch that he was in there as well. Again, Jennifer Garner, who has been in movies that we talked on your podcast as well. I mean, I thought they did an alright job. I thought like they gave it some effort. The writing though, that could be questioned, but I guess you could always say they did the best they could with what they had. The other thing that I would say I enjoyed, and it's just a little tidbit, and maybe I'm gonna exaggerate it a little bit, but this is how I kind of saw it, and it's what kind of happened towards the end of the film after they were able to get the park back in working order. And I liked how the idea of the darkness never, like, it didn't go away completely. And I guess it's sort of like, it's the shot of the sky and the cloud is still like up there, like the dark clouds or whatever, it's still up there. And I like that detail because it's sort of a reminder that even if things are going your way, like if things are all happy and go-giddy or whatever, there are going to be times where you might not feel this way. There might be times where you might be feeling down. There's always the idea of what do you do when you get knocked down? Put whatever cliche or whatever you want into this idea of the darkness never going away. And it's then all about you as your character. Like, what do you do in these instances? Do you stay down or you get back up? To me, when I saw that scene, like I said, it's very minimal compared to like the overall scheme of the movie. But for me, when I saw that, I thought that to me was a bigger message, at least to me, than the whole idea of just not losing your imagination, as a child. Because like I said, you could insert almost anything in this idea and then it would still come out with that sort of, meaning related to whatever it is that you want to refer to, whether it's your imagination or never losing that inner child of yourself or never stop reaching for that dream. Keep trying to see what happens. You never know because, one door might lead to another, so that's kind of how I saw it. Like I said, I might be exaggerating it, but I think that to me was probably the most powerful moment of the movie because everything else, like you said too, so like it sort of fell flat, like it didn't quite hit the mark, and it's because of not so much of the concepts being there, but it's more about execution, how they set up a certain scene or a certain idea, and it didn't come out as strong because either it took too long to get there or they didn't establish enough material to get to that content. You mentioned like this film reminded you of The Iron Giant. For me, like at the beginning of this film, it sort of reminded me of movies like Up in terms of the relationship they were trying to establish between the mother and daughter. And I thought they took way too long compared to like movies like Up, where maybe they only took like 10 to 15 minutes to establish the history behind these individuals, how much they meant to each other, and then the fallout that happened, to one of the individuals. Like I thought Up did a really great job at that, and I thought this film, it sort of was going for that vibe, I feel like, with the mother and the daughter, particularly with the mother going away eventually to seek treatment. But it just took way too long for my taste to sort of get that same effect that I got from Up. And because of that, the film sort of lacked in terms of content because the movie is only about, I would say, an hour and 30 minutes at most. Because they already spent so much time trying to establish that point, they didn't have enough time to devote to other ideas that I thought they should have devoted to, particularly with how June handled her struggles. And they always made it come back to her idea of her losing her imagination, her losing the motive to not invest in that anymore. And because of that, that was pretty much the reason the Wonderland, the imaginative Wonderland that is, why it kind of went into turmoil, because she didn't have the drive to imagine anymore. But once she got that drive back, when she realized that, oh, this was my fault, I need to correct this, I need to continue to imagine, or put it in another sense, I need to continue believing. I need to not feel so down. I shouldn't feel so cynical all the time, because that's sort of what convinced her to get off the bus initially, like, which I found kind of ironic because, she imagined that, with her mom going away, that things are just going to get worse. And then she imagined what could happen to her dad, and that pretty much scared her. So she was like, no, I need to go back home or whatever. And because of this, she wandered through the woods and then come across this quote unquote Wonderland. And then, she encountered the animals there, which again, despite being played by these renowned actors and actresses, they were very generalized characters. None of them really stood out in terms of like their personality. The only one really was the bear, because you can't not notice the blue bear standing there in front of you. That was pretty much like the colorization of the character that made it stand out. But in terms of their personality, they were like pretty general. I can't credit how much I enjoyed the characters because of that. You know, it got to a point too where I was starting to question whether or not the problem was really due to June's lack of imagination prowess anymore. I thought like it was the problem was like rooted deeper than that. And it even had to do with her mother leaving, I feel like, as well, because you could have inserted any other scenario that wasn't as drastic happening to either of the parent, and the movie would have still probably led down the same road. So I thought the mother situation didn't really add anything significant for me, because I mean, she just returned at the end of the film, and then what did that really resolve? Nothing, because at that point I felt like June, she already kind of sort of overcome her demon. I guess in this sense, her demon really is like her sense of insecurity. It's not her lack of imagination. To me, that was the root of the problem, and I feel like they were trying to maybe make it more so like it was due to her lack of not wanting to imagine anymore. That was the root of the problem. But I feel like from a psychological standpoint, I feel like it was just basically the idea of her giving up hope and not wanting to confront the issue at hand because she was scared. And then the lack of imagination was a product of that. I wish they would have touched more on that instead, because it would have been more believable. But then again, we are talking about an animated film that was most likely targeted towards children. So maybe going down this route would have been a little too, as they say, dark for children to handle. Maybe they, use the idea of imagination as a concept for kids to be able to relate to a bit more. Yeah, other than that, like I said, there's not much for me to really praise this film for. Oh, another thing too, though, the cinematography of this film. For an animated film, I think it's like one of the worst films that I've come across, in which the way they shot the scenes, it wasn't really good, to be quite blunt. They chose very specific perspectives and camera angles that I felt were overused. It didn't quite add to the story that you would expect. Shooting a certain scene the right way, without even having a dialogue, can bring about certain feelings or emotions, or even like speak to like a conversation without people in the scene talking to one another. But I felt like the film was taking advantage of certain shots too much to just get a certain effect off, versus trying to convey a particular part of their story. That's something that I'll also bring up about this film, the cinematography. I thought it was a bit lacking as well in terms of its effectiveness. And lastly, I'm just going to point this out to you. You spoke of the whole Pie song too. I wonder if it was like a coincidence that they did this, that the movie was pre-released on Pie Day, or was it intentional the entire way just so that they could set up this scene? Because if they did, they must have gone out of their way to just do it. It didn't really like matter that they did or not, because of how the other aspects of the film kind of fell short for me.
I agree with you in the sense of the animation. See, I couldn't pinpoint what bugged me about the animation, but I think it was the cinematography. Because I mean, the only thing that stood out to me from the whole thing was the eyes. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, I really can't imagine that it's just the eyes that is captivating me. While in reality, I think you hit it right on the head, that it's the lack of the shots, like creativity in their part. So I think that's what I wanted to mention, but I really couldn't pinpoint it. But good thing that you caught that. I'm going to basically just go down my list of what I feel they could have done to make the movie slightly better. First of all, the idea of her when she got off the bus, and you mentioned it was like if she's going into the woods and then finds the magical land or something. I mean, like, I didn't like the whole idea of it being magic. What if she was going through the forest and then she stumbles or falls and then faints or something, but when she wakes up she finds herself at the doorstep of Wonderland? And the same idea as Alice in Wonderland, she fell asleep and then she dreamed about the whole Wonderland. That's one of the ideas that I could have pitched. That way when she wakes up after everything is said and done, she can question, like, was that real or did I just dream it? But she still takes what she learned from the dream and applies it to her life. The other thing, how you said about the darkness never goes away, still there. I enjoyed that aspect, because I believe that for me, the idea of darkness was, like you said, insecurity, or the idea of death. It's always there. Your family members are going to die eventually. And I'm sorry, this sounds really morbid, but we're not eternal, so we are gonna die, and that idea is still there. Even though she's living in her fantasy world, she still has the lingering idea that it's still present. The way she subdued it in the movie, I think it could have been done by her going into the darkness and reminding her that her mom told her don't lose the spark, and the spark is the idea of that's life. You know, you have to take that as life. You're gonna have falls, but you have to keep going. You can never lose that, like you said, that goal that you need to achieve. So to me, that spark should have basically been the driving force that would subdue the dark. I thought it was gonna be that because they kept mentioning the spark, don't lose the spark, but they never did. And when she's in the park, I would have liked it that she needed to find herself, because like she said, I lost myself. She even mentioned that she had lost her way, she lost herself, and she goes into her imagination or the dream, the wonderland, and finds herself in each character. The bear, Boomer, the beavers, Greta, Steve, you know, all of them need to have something that she lost, because she did create them out of her ideas with her mom and everything. So by finding those elements that she lost, she finds herself and then finds that missing spark. I think that would have driven it a little better, and at the same time, kids would have basically gotten the idea, hey, you know, she's coming back around or something. So I guess that's basically my whole list of things they could have done better. So with that said, I'm going to ask Touly for his final grade.
Oh man, like I feel awful giving it a low score because when it comes to animated films, I tend to enjoy them. But this one, yeah, it didn't quite hit the mark. So I would have to give it a 4 out of 10.
For me, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. The thing that kind of gave it the extra point was obviously the actors in the movie. John Oliver, obviously, we're going to see him in the new Lion King movie. So, I mean, he's funny. You know, I've seen him, all the other cast too. I've seen them in their other renditions, especially Kenneth Thompson, who used to be in Good Burger. So, I mean, now see him coming back, not in movies, but as a voiceover, that really kind of got me to relive some of my old childhood, you know, memories. Yeah, that's the extra point for this movie. I don't feel bad for giving it a 5, which means don't see it. There's better movies out there for this. I guess with that, this wraps up the review for Wonder Park. Please join us next time when we review Dumbo. And remember, social media is down in the description. Hit us up if you have any questions. And remember, subscribe. And remember, keep watching movies.